Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking through some player props I like over on Prizepicks for the Week 12 college football slate. We're going to break down some plays I like for the games on Saturday. I am recording this video on Friday. We do have some games on Friday, but this video specifically is just going to be focused on the Saturday games. I got 4 props that we're going to share in this video, guys, that I do like over on Prizepicks. So before we talk through these plays, as always, if you guys do enjoy these college football videos, if they do help you out, make sure to hit that like button down below. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And if you are new to the channel and if you are new to Prizepicks, if you don't have an account over on Prizepicks, be sure to sign up and use promo code NOAH. When you sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code and place your first lineup, you'll get $50 in promo funds instantly added to your account. So you sign up, make a deposit. Let's say you only want to deposit $10. You put $10 in, play a $5 lineup. Doesn't matter if you win or lose that lineup. Prizepicks is going to give you $50 in promo funds that you can then use to play additional lineups. Any money you win off those is credit, which you can play or withdraw if you want to do so. So be sure to go check out Prizepicks, guys, and again, use that promo code NOAH when you sign up. And I do also want to give a quick shout out to Sleeper because we do have a partnership with Sleeper as well. And for a limited time, you can get your first deposit matched up to $1,500 over on Sleeper when you sign up with promo code NOAH. So if you have ever wanted to try out Sleeper and you can afford to make a bigger deposit, Sleeper is going to match your first deposit up to $1,500. So if you put in $1,500, if you have the funds to do that, Sleeper is going to give you an additional $1,500 to play with. So definitely go check them out, guys. Download the Sleeper app. Use promo code NOAH. Sleeper, they do have an app both for iPhone and Android, so they have an app for both. And Sleeper, if you don't know what Sleeper is, they're just a DFS pick'em app. They're very similar to Prizepicks. You're just picking more or less on player projections. You're building out an entry. You can make up to an 8-pick entry on Sleeper. You can mix and match sports, and you can win up to 100x your money. And yes, Sleeper does offer college football, so if you want to take college football stuff over there, you can do so on Sleeper. So go check them out, guys, and again, use that code NOAH to get your limited time deposit bonus up to $1,500. But let's talk through the props that I'm liking for this Saturday slate of games. Again, we got 4 plays I like for today. So first prop we're going to take a look at, first 2 props we're going to talk about are going to be fantasy scores, and then we're going to take a look at a quarterback receiver stack that I like. So first off, for fantasy score, I really like to take fantasy scores for really all sports, NFL, NBA, college football. Fantasy scores, there's always going to be an edge with fantasy scores because these are lines that Prizepicks has to come up with themselves. Any props you look at like pass yards, receiving yards, receptions, Prizepicks can just basically copy what the DraftKings, FanDuel, what those sportsbooks have and put those lines on their site. But fantasy score, there's no, unless you pay for projections from certain DFS sites, there's really no site that offers fantasy score lines. So Prizepicks basically has to come up with these lines themselves, and that's where there can be an edge because sometimes these lines can be too high, sometimes they can be too low. Got a couple fantasy score lines that I definitely think are a little bit low on Prizepicks. First one that we're going to talk about that I do like is Phil Maffa for more than 19.5 fantasy scores. So this line looks a little bit low on Prizepicks. If you kind of compare projections around the industry, you can take a look at Underdog. Underdog's another DFS site that does fantasy score projections for college football, and they currently have their line on Phil Maffa set at 20.75. And it is worth noting that Underdog is half-point PPR scoring. So if you don't know how fantasy score is calculated, how the points are calculated, you can just click scoring chart. The college football fantasy scoring is the exact same as the NFL scoring, so it's full PPR. You get a point per reception, and then everything else is pretty self-explanatory. If you've ever played fantasy football before, the scoring chart is the exact same scoring system that every fantasy football league uses. So we're getting a lower line on Prizepicks compared to what Underdog has, and Underdog is half-point PPR. Prizepicks is full-point PPR. Now, Phil Maffa is not a running back that's going to go out there and catch a ton of passes. He did have a recent game, though, against Louisville where he did have 5 receptions, which was a season high for him. But typically, Maffa's only going to get a couple catches. But sometimes in game scripts where Clemson gets behind, they'll definitely give Maffa 3 or 4 catches. But in game scripts where Maffa, or where Clemson's playing from ahead, which is what the game scripts project to be this week, they're 13.5-point favorites facing Pittsburgh. This is a spot where Phil Maffa should be able to get a lot of carries. They're going to feed him on the ground. You look at what he's been getting lately in terms of usage. Last week against Virginia Tech, 26 carries, and then also had a reception. Against Louisville, he had 30 carries and 5 receptions. Against Virginia, 18 carries, 1 reception. against Wake Forest, 19 carries and a reception. Like, he's getting 20-plus touches a game, and as of late, he's been getting almost 30 touches a game. So Maffa's just getting a ton of volume right now. He's got a very high rush yards line. He's projected for over 100 rush yards this week, and he's heavily favored to score a touchdown. Now, Maffa, this season, if you look at his touchdowns, he scored a touchdown in every game except 4. So he didn't score a touchdown last week against Virginia Tech, didn't score a touchdown against Florida State, didn't score a touchdown against Stanford, and then didn't score a touchdown in their game against Georgia opening, the kickoff game. But if you look at the games where he has found the end zone, Maffa has gone over this fantasy score line in every game except for one. There was one game against Appalachian State where he did have 118 rush yards and a touchdown, and only finished with 17.8 fantasy points, just because he really didn't catch any passes that game, which definitely hurt him. But every other game this season where he's found the end zone, he's also gone over this fantasy score line. And Maffa, on DraftKings, I was looking, he is minus 500 to score a touchdown on Saturday. So he is heavily favored to get into the end zone here. If we project Maffa for over 100 rush yards, we project him to get into the end zone, and then maybe he gets a couple catches as well, that should be enough for him to go over this 19.5 fantasy score line. Now, you look at the matchup against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's actually been pretty good against the run so far this season, but I'm not really buying it. Like, this Pittsburgh team, they haven't faced a ton of great offenses this year. Pittsburgh, they actually looked pretty good to start the season. I want to say they were undefeated, but then they've kind of come back down to earth over their last few games. I want to say they've lost like back-to-back games. Let me see. Yeah, they're 7-2 on the season. They lost last week against Virginia. They lost the game before that against SMU. So Pittsburgh has definitely not looked as good lately. Now they're facing a Clemson offense that has looked much better this season than they did kind of to start the year. They looked terrible. Clemson's offense looked terrible against Georgia to start the season. Never really since then. They have kind of really kicked it up to gear. Kate Klubnik's been playing well. Clemson's been able to move the ball down the field. And this is a spot where they should be able to put up some points against this Pittsburgh team. I know they have a high team total here. If Clemson puts up, 3 or 4 offensive touchdowns, there's a very good chance that Maffa's going to account for at least one of those, if not multiple touchdowns. And if he gets into the end zone once, potentially twice, I like his chances of going over 19.5 fantasy score. Again, we're getting a lower line here on Prizepicks compared to what some other sites have their line on Maffa. So like that is our first prop for Saturday. Then the next prop I like, again, is another fantasy score prop. We're going to take a look at Tyler Shuck, and I like Tyler Shuck for more than 19.5 fantasy score. So again, just comparing some lines from Prizepicks to other DFS sites. Currently on Underdog, they have their fantasy point line on Tyler Shuck set at 23.15. So their line is 3.5 points higher than what Prizepicks has. I definitely think Prizepicks is low here on Shuck compared to the market. And you look at Shuck's projections for Saturday. He's got some really high lines. He's got a 273.5 pass yards line. He's favored, so you look at his 1.5 passing touchdowns. It's a goblin. That means he's favored to go over that line. He's favored to throw 2 touchdowns here. And if Shuck throws for 275 yards, if he throws for 2 touchdowns, that's going to put him in, I believe, right around, I think that's right around like 19.5 fantasy points. And that's assuming that he doesn't get any rush yards. Shuck's not a super mobile quarterback, but he has had a few games this season with like 20, 30 rush yards. He did have a game against Notre Dame with 36 rush yards, did have a game against Georgia Tech with 19 rush yards. And for what it's worth, last week he did get into the end zone with his legs. He had a rushing touchdown last week. Again, Shuck is not super mobile, but I think this 19.5 fantasy score line for him is too low, especially in this matchup against Stanford. Stanford has been a team that historically you can beat through the air, and Stanford's never really been a team that's had, they've never had a good defense anyways. Last season, Stanford gave up the most pass yards per game. And so far this season, they've given up over 276 pass yards per game, which is still one of the higher marks in the country. So this is definitely a spot where Louisville's offense should have no problem moving the ball down the field through the air. And they're a team that will throw the ball plenty. Shuck has plenty of games this year with like 30, 40 pass attempts. Last week against Clemson, he had 32 pass attempts, and that was in a game that Louisville had a lead for a large majority of the game. Now, I will say that Louisville, they are big favorites in this game, which I guess is the one concern. Like, if Louisville gets a really, really big lead, will they take their foot off the gas pedal and just run the ball? We don't really know, but like you can look at some of their games this season. They had a big win against Jacksonville State, 49-14. Tyler Shuck still threw the ball 33 times in that game, 349 yards, 2 touchdowns. So I think even if Louisville gets a big lead, they'll still continue to air it out, still try and put up points here. And this is a spot, again, where they should have no problem putting up points against a very poor Stanford defense that has been easily beatable through the air. And again, Underdog has their fantasy point line on Shuck set at 23.15. We're getting his line at 19.5 on Prizepicks. So I definitely think this line on Prizepicks is a little bit too low, just given Shuck's projections kind of across the industry and given the really good matchup here. So that's the second prop I like for Saturday. And then the next two props that I do like are going to be a quarterback receiver stack. So this is something that I like to do on Prizepicks. So when it comes to stacking and doing correlated stacks, Prizepicks will adjust the payouts for those depending on what kind of stacks you do. So like if you take two players, like a quarterback and a receiver over yards, and then you take another quarterback and receiver over yards, you're not going to get a normal 10x payout for that because you have two correlated stacks. But if you just do one correlated stack and then you play props from different games, you can still get the normal 10x payout for going 4 for 4. So if we do a quarterback receiver stack with two other props from different games, we'll still get a 10x payout. And the quarterback receiver stack that I like is going to be Jacoby Criswell, take him for more than 235.5 pass yards, and pair that with J.J. Jones more than 53.5 receiving yards. These two props directly correlate, pretty self-explanatory. Any receiving yards that J.J. Jones gets are going to come from Jacoby Criswell unless Criswell gets injured or they do a trick play or something. For the most part, if you get 54 yards from J.J. Jones, Criswell's getting 54 of those yards too. So I like this spot a lot for North Carolina to be able to move the ball through the air against this Wake Forest defense. Wake Forest, kind of similar to Stanford, is another team that has been really, really poor against the pass this year. You look at Wake Forest, they're actually giving up the second most pass yards per game in the country. Only Tulsa has allowed more pass yards per game than Wake Forest. So I think North Carolina is going to have a lot of success moving the ball through the air. Now, North Carolina is a team that does have a really good running game. They have a really good running back in Amarion Hampton. And if you look at what North Carolina did last week through the air, they didn't really do much, but that was just because Amarion Hampton had a massive game. I think he ran for 172 yards. He had like 4 touchdowns or something. Like all of North Carolina's offensive production last week came through the ground game. Well, now in a good matchup against Wake Forest, a team that you can easily beat through the air, I think we can definitely see them put up more offensive stats this game through the air with their quarterback, with their receivers. And Criswell is going to lean on J.J. Jones as his top target, especially with Bryson Nesbitt out right now, their top tight end. Without Nesbitt, we should see J.J. Jones getting a lot of targets. If you look at the game against Virginia, which was a recent game without Nesbitt, in that game, J.J. Jones did have 129 yards, 5 catches, and I believe he had a good amount of targets as well. Yeah, he had 7 targets in that game. Now, last week against Florida State, he didn't get any catches. He had 0 catches. But again, that was just because North Carolina didn't really have to throw the ball much. Last week, I believe Jacoby Criswell he had 17 pass attempts last week, which was very low for him. Typically, Criswell throws the ball like 30, 35 times. Over their last few games, he's had 48, 39, 45, 31, and 30 pass attempts. So unless North Carolina gets all their production on the ground again, which I mean they could, because I don't think Wake Forest is going to be able to stop them on the ground either. But unless that happens, or as long as that doesn't happen again, where Amarion Hampton runs for like 200 yards, if Jacoby Criswell comes anywhere near his pass yards line or exceeds 236 yards, we should have a very good chance of also getting 54 yards for J.J. Jones. And you can just kind of look at this season when Jacoby Criswell has gone over this line, his pass yards line. A lot of games where he's done that, J.J. Jones has also gone over his receiving yards line. Against JMU, Criswell threw for 475 yards. J.J. Jones had 86 yards in that game. Against Duke, he threw for 251. Criswell did. J.J. Jones had 89 yards. Against Pittsburgh, 269. That was a game where J.J. Jones didn't do as much, only had 36 yards. But then against Virginia, 293 pass yards for Criswell and 129 yards for J.J. Jones. So that just shows you the correlation there between those two. Most of the time, when Criswell goes over this line, that also means J.J. Jones is going to go over his line because he's his top target. And especially without Bryson Nesbitt, they're going to lean on J.J. Jones even more in the passing game. So that's what I'm liking, guys, as our 4 props for Saturday's college football games. Phil Maffa, we're going to take for more than 19.5 fantasy score. Tyler Shuck, we're going to take for more than 19.5 fantasy score as well. And then we're going to do a correlated quarterback receiver stack of Jacoby Criswell over 235.5 pass yards and J.J. Jones over 53.5 receiving yards. If you play these as a 4-pick power play on Prizepicks, you still get a 10x payout. So even though we have a correlated stack here, we're not getting a payout deduction, which does make this a really good entry to play. Anytime you can do a correlated stack and not get a payout deduction, it's going to always be a good prop, good way to play. So that's what I'm liking, guys. Also, I'm liking for this college football Saturday slate, week 12. It's already week 12 of the college football season, man. It feels crazy. The season's just flying by. But yeah, I wanted to give you guys some props I like this week. As always, I appreciate you guys watching these Prizepicks videos, the college football videos. Make sure you guys hit that like button down below if you do enjoy. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And again, if you guys are new to Prizepicks, if you don't have a Prizepicks account, use that promo code NOAH when you sign up. And again, when you place your first lineup, you'll get $50 in promo funds instantly added to your account. So go check out Prizepicks if you guys have not yet. But good luck this week, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.